What's up, everyone? Kevin from Epic Gardening here. I'm here with
Hilary Kearney
of
Girl Next Door Honey.
Girl Next Door Honey, and she actually is a girl next door because this is like 5 to 10 minutes away from my house. We're gonna do some bee action, and I actually don't know a whole lot about bees. So what exactly are we doing today? Like, what are we gonna be talking about? What are we looking at?
We're gonna open up some of my hives, and I'm gonna tell you what we're looking at, and then I'll teach you some stuff about bees, and we're basically just gonna like inspect them, see how they're doing.
We're hanging with the bees today.
Yeah.
So let's get these bee suits on, which I've never worn before in my entire life.
It's just like your eggplant costume.
That's true.
Just put that right on.
That's true. All right, we're good to go. All right, so Hilary has the smoke blower.
The smoker.
Is that what it's called?
It's called the smoker.
I already don't know the lingo. Okay, so we're gonna be cracking open this small hive.
Yeah, and I don't even know if they're actually still in here because this was a really weak rescue, and I think they might have. Yep. So there's not even any bees in here.
Okay, can I take a look real quick?
Yeah, so it's just, I was suspicious of this, but you can see how tiny they were.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes when you try to, you know, transfer a really little colony. Oh wait, there are still some bees in here.
Oh, no way.
They're so small. Aww.
Look at these guys. So why would there be like a small little bit of bees right here while there's a bunch in these ones here? Like, what would be the reason that would be so small?
So each one of this is a colony, this is a colony, those are colonies. So this is probably a bee colony that started really late in the summer or the fall and was already small to begin with, and they try to build up. So this hive wants to be like this hive, but they only have so much energy to grow. So probably, now that I see that they're still alive, what I can do for them is I can either just combine them with one of these other hives, or I can try to bolster them like artificially by feeding them like sugar water. I'm not even sure that there's a queen in here, so that's what I want to find out, because if there is no queen, then they're not going to make it, and I should just combine them with one of these other hives.
Okay, so would the reason that another colony wouldn't move to this one be because they already have a queen in that one and they're cool where they are?
Usually when a colony moves, it wants to move into an unoccupied hive.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's possible that they would, you know, they would attack this colony and steal their, oh, there's a queen in here. Okay, so I was looking for eggs.
Gotcha.
So like the eggs are in the bottom of these cells, and so the queen's the only one who will lay fertilized eggs. So she is in here, and I can tell by looking at the eggs that she's in here. I don't know if the camera will pick them up, but
probably not.
They look like little tiny grains of white rice at the bottom there.
So you found the actual queen, or you found the eggs, which are the signs of the queen?
I just found the eggs.
Got it.
So I don't see the actual queen, which means she's probably on this next piece.
Does a queen just stay in a hive forever, or do they ever just decide to leave and then everyone follows them, or how does that work?
The honeybees are like a super organism. So you have all these individual bees living together kind of as one big animal.
Yeah.
And the worker bees, which are the bees we just saw, don't reproduce. So they're just working. They go out to the flowers, they make the honey, they build the comb, they protect the hive. So they have all these different jobs they do. And then the queen is just laying eggs.
Got it.
So her job is to make more worker bees, and that's all she's doing. And then in spring, if they want to make a new colony, the way they do that is they divide in two, and half of them leave to make a new colony. And so the queen will leave at that point. Otherwise, she's not leaving. She stays in the hive the whole time.
Okay.
But it's called swarming. So when you hear swarming, you think like, oh, the bees are coming to kill me.
Right, exactly.
But it's actually just the way that they reproduce on the superorganism level. So they just kind of divide like a cell would, and they make a new colony. But that queen leaves with the swarm, and the rest of the bees, they would stay behind and make a new queen.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask next.
Yeah.
Is if that queen leaves, how are they getting the new queen?
Right. So they have to have a queen because she's the one who's keeping their population up. So this is a super tiny colony. Like, I don't even know if there's 100 bees in there. Like, it's really probably not going to survive just because it's so little. But these other hives have, you know, like 20 to 50,000 bees in them probably.
So they're nice and robust.
Yeah. Let's open this butterfly hive.
Okay,
They're
cool.
usually happening. So this colony actually, when we first like set up here, I had all my equipment stacked against this wall, and this colony moved into the equipment on its own. So what I was just talking about, one of the swarms from some other colony somewhere around here just like chose my yard as a place to live, and they just moved right into the equipment.
That's some nice decision making on their part, right?
Yeah. They were huge too. At first I was like, oh, okay, I'll check them later, whatever. And then I opened them and they were gigantic, and I was like, they had already built all this comb.
So could you tell us a little bit about the structure of a beehive? Because I don't know a whole lot about how these are built either.
Yeah, so this is called a Langstroth hive.
Okay.
And what it is a series of boxes. So this has 3 boxes, and each box holds 10 frames, which are those wooden
things you pulled out earlier.
Yeah.
Yep.
And each frame is designed to have the bees build a piece of comb in it. So in the wild, bees build like a series of pieces of comb, and it would hang, next to each other inside of a tree hollow or something like that.
Sure.
But by having them build in these frames, I'm able to pull up the pieces and actually look at them, check on their health, and then do a little bit of manipulation, like move it. For example, like if this colony was really strong and this colony was really weak, I could theoretically take a frame of honey from here and give it to the other hive, stuff like that.
So we're pulling one frame up right now. So there would be 30 frames then if this is 3 boxes high, right?
Exactly.
How much honey would a 3-box, 30-frame hive produce?
Probably like 20 to 50 pounds. So this is all honey.
Got it.
And so each one of those cells is filled up with nectar that's being dehydrated, and so it's ripening into honey. So the bees collect nectar from the flowers. They store it inside themselves. They have 2 stomachs, one for eating and one for storing honey. It's called a honey stomach. Wouldn't you like to have one of those?
I think I might already have one of those. I have a crazy sweet tooth.
Yeah. And they carry it back to the hive, and then they spit it up into the cells, and this is where they start dehydrating it. So the nectar is first really, really watery, like 80%, and then they get it down to like 18%.
And that's when it becomes honey around that mark.
And that's when it becomes honey. And so once it's finished dehydrating, they will put a little beeswax cap over the top. So these are not done yet. And I know exactly where this honey came from. It's from Brazilian pepper trees.
Oh, wow. How do you know that?
Because that's what's blooming all over this neighborhood right now, and I can tell by like the taste and the color. It's got a green tinge to it that's kind of hard to pick up on camera.
Sure.
But as soon as those trees started blooming, this hive started filling this empty comb with honey.
So process of elimination.
Yeah, it's really just deduction here. So there's probably other things mixed in here as well, but it's all up to where your bees go. So when you have a hive in your backyard, they're going to anything that's growing within like probably a mile radius.
And you can, of course, as a gardener, manipulate that as well by planting the things that you want them to be pollinating.
Right, and so they need like millions of flowers to make honey.
Yeah.
So what you plant will matter, but not in a huge way, unless you're planting something like a tree.
Right.
So like if you have mature flowering trees, that's going to be the biggest influence on any of the honey flavors going on, because when that blooms, that's like millions of flowers. So eucalyptus trees make a lot of honey, and you can often taste, at least a tinge of eucalyptus in pretty much all of the honey in San Diego.
Okay.
And
so
it has a kind of like medicinal taste to it.
Yeah. I know that flavor well. Oh, so there's some caps, right?
Yeah, so this is capped. So half of this is ready to go, and they've put a cap on it, and that's to keep the moisture level where they want it.
And so you would never harvest it at this point. You would wait till the whole comb is capped off?
Exactly, yeah. Because if you harvested it like this, it would be a little too watery and runny, and your honey can actually ferment.
Oh, interesting.
But if you wait for it to be the right moisture level, then your honey will never go bad. So it's the only food on earth that never spoils.
Yeah, they found honey from thousands of years ago, right?
Yeah, from in the ancient Egyptian tombs. You could still eat it.
So going back to the pollination for a second, it sounds like from the gardener's perspective, unless you're going mature trees, there's not a real, you're helping the bees, but not in a way that would be enough.
Yeah.
But then from the gardener's perspective, if you've got the bees around, those like you don't have to hand pollinate your cucumbers, you don't have to hand pollinate your tomatoes because they're doing all that work for you, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, part of it is it's a collective effort. So like if everyone was gardening and everyone was planting something for bees,
Sure.
then that would be impactful. If you're in it just for pollination, that's reason enough because you'll get like way better yield.
Yep.
Like not only do you get more fruits and vegetables, but the quality is better. So the more times something's pollinated, like the bigger it'll be and actually the flavor's improved.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I've talked a lot about like if you're having pollination issues, sometimes come out with a toothbrush, grab the pollen, go from the male to the, you know.
Yeah, you shouldn't have pollination issues with bees. A lot of people, you know, in Southern California are growing avocado trees, and those are like notorious for having pollination issues because the bees don't actually love avocado flowers that much.
Oh, interesting.
Like
okay.
they'll go to them, but it's not their favorite. So if there's something else blooming, like that pepper tree I mentioned,
Yep.
they will go to that. They will not waste time on the avocado tree. But if your avocado tree is close enough to a hive, they will go to it just because it's the most efficient nectar that they can get. So,
Sure.
if you have an avocado tree and your neighbor has a beehive or you set up a beehive, then you'll see like a really big difference in how many avocados you'll get.
So the guard bees, if I'm looking for the guard bees, which ones do you think they would be? These just the guys hanging out?
Any of the ones that are kind of look like they're hanging out and trying to grab at any of the bees coming in.
So what happens, like how do they kill them? Do they sting them?
Oh, they don't kill them. They just kind of like wrestle with them and keep them from coming in the hive.
Guys, it's hard to describe how many bees are around me right now.
Yeah, it's hard to pick up on camera. You check this out. They're actually making a pheromone right now.
Okay.
See them? They're actually signaling like, this is home, this is where we live. Because they were taken away from the main part of their hive and now they're being reunited. So they're trying to tell the other bees like, yay, we're home.
What is so when you're saying making a pheromone, what are we actually looking at them doing?
Okay, see how they have their little butts in the air, some of them?
Yeah.
They have a little pheromone gland at the end, and then they're fanning their wings to spread that smell.
Oh, okay. So they're basically helping everyone out, saying like, "Hey,
if you're lost,
get back to here."
Yeah, if you're lost, come here.
Got it. Wow, pretty neat. Okay, so can you talk to us about how you're putting the cap on? You just do it very slowly to not steamroll any bees?
Exactly. I'm just sliding it so I can avoid crushing the bees.
Got it.
So if you just kind of, if you see that girl, she was kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And just poke her so she gets out of the way.
Like, hey.
And just like, you just kind of slide it back and forth like, come on.
Just so they trigger and move.
Yeah, that's how they talk to each other actually, is they'll bump each other. That's one of the ways they talk to each other anyway. So you can just kind of poke at them with your finger.
Gotcha.
This is the hard part though at the end because they're all crammed and you don't want to crush anyone.
You don't want to smush any of them.
You just have to kind of...
What happens, so if a bee, oh look at the bottom here, they're kind of like chilling right there. There's a ton of them trying to get in from that side too, it looks like.
It might be because you were just standing in front of their entrance that you were like blocking it for a second,
yeah,
so that's like a backlog of traffic.
Also, they're on the ground here.
Really?
There's some on the ground, right down here.
Wow, weirdos right now. Oh yeah, I see that.
See that?
That is weird.
What are they doing?
Let me look. I hope there's not like a queen overhead.
Oh yeah, I guess if they absconded, then maybe the queen left? Does that happen?
Usually the queen goes with them.
Yeah.
There's not a queen in here. I don't know what these bees are doing. Do you live here? Oh, they're not from here. Do you see that?
No, I didn't notice. Like,
look
at
see her. She's like chewing on her leg.
Are they fighting?
Yeah, she was trying to fight her because she was like, "This is not. She's not from that hive."
Around these parts.
Yeah. So like, to me, this tells me that this is probably a little group of bees that was from the other hive.
Yeah.
Maybe that little one. And when they smelled the honey here, like with the open hive, they smelled that honey and they were like, oh, let's go to where the honey is.
Yeah, because we're starving over here.
Yeah, and so that, to me, that's just like a really strong indication that I need to feed them some sugar water.
Okay, cool.
It's weird how often that happens, like with rescue colonies. This is definitely not the first time I've seen it. But this hive is so strong, like they probably just fell on the ground when they tried to get in because they started getting attacked.
Oh, and then they're like, okay, well, we're just gonna hang here until we figure out what to do next.
It's chaos over here.
Yeah.
That's fun. I can still see them going in and out.
This is a flow hive.
And so these boxes are just like the ones that we looked at. There's brood in there, there's honey in there.
Yeah.
It's natural comb that they built themselves. But this upper box is made of plastic comb, so just this uppermost box.
Oh, so they don't have to build.
Right.
Interesting.
So just like I was saying earlier, that one hive I gave them empty natural comb and they were able to just fill it when honey was around.
Yeah.
This is always like that because it's plastic. So that's the idea behind it. And the reason it's plastic is so that you can harvest it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So if this were full, which it's not,
Yeah.
I could put a tube in here and I would turn a key at the top and it would crack this open from the inner part.
Oh, okay.
And the honey like flows out through the center of the comb.
Got it.
And into a tube. And so I still have to inspect this hive and make sure they're healthy and do what we just did. But when it comes to harvesting the honey, all I have to do is turn this key and I can pour it directly into the jar, which is like pretty awesome because it's a lot less work and it's less stressful to the bees. Like if I were to harvest from there, I have to open it and go through every single frame, get all the bees off,
Yep.
then carry it to the house, and then I have to do all this extra work. So some people don't like it just because they don't like plastic, which I get.
Sure,
I don't
yeah.
love plastic either. But it's one of those, everything in beekeeping is kind of a trade-off, and I think it's a pretty...
It's the same with gardening too. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole organic versus non-organic idea and pesticides versus not, or what pesticides you're using. Everything's a trade-off, right?
Yeah, so there's no like perfect thing, and so I've been using this for a couple years and I think it's just it's pretty cool. It's a pretty easy way to harvest honey and like...
Would it be a good thing for like a new beekeeper to use, do you think? Or
I think it's fine. It's not better or worse for a new beekeeper to use. It's expensive, so the only reason that I would say not to try it as a new beekeeper would only be because a lot of new beekeepers quit because it's really difficult.
I mean, I think something like 40% of gardeners quit after the first year, and I
Yeah.
can only imagine how much harder beekeeping is than gardening.
Yeah, there's like higher stakes in beekeeping. So a lot of new beekeepers end up deciding it's not for them.
Yep.
And so if you ran out and bought this, then you're
Yeah.
out like a lot more money than if you just
Totally.
bought. But one of the cool things about it is it's compatible with the Langstroth hive. So if you wanted, you could get any kind of hive, a Langstroth hive like we've been looking at, and you could buy just the uppermost box with the plastic
Oh,
frames.
interesting. Okay.
So you could start out without it, and then you can add it to your hive later if you decide like this is really for me and I really want to try this.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to keep beekeeping for a
And I
while.
want to simplify the honey
Yeah.
harvesting process.
It also has a window on this side so you can see a side view, which is kind of cool.
So then you can take a peek and see how the comb is developing.
Yeah, so the idea is that you can get an idea of like, is this full yet?
Yeah.
So at one point that was really full, but then I was getting married in this backyard, so I had to move them, and then when I moved them back, it wasn't full anymore.
Oh no.
So I like missed my window of being able to do a harvest.
Oh wait, so okay, well that's interesting. Why would it not be full? Like what would happen to the honey if you didn't harvest
They
it?
used it, and I think they probably used it because I moved them like to East County where it's colder at night.
Okay.
So they probably just had to use a lot more honey, and there wasn't as many things blooming out there. So
Oh, so they're gonna eat it
They
instead.
ate it, and they weren't able to replace it. And then by the time I brought them back here, it wasn't as much blooming anymore.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Got
One
it.
cool thing about the honey though is like, you never know what you're gonna get. It's always gonna be a little different, and it just depends on what your bees were going to. So if this hive were to make honey and that hive were to make honey, even at the same time, I could end up with totally different flavor palettes, like totally different honeys, because each colony is gonna go to different sources. So they have different preferences for what they like to go to.
So what would be like I'm sure you've tasted a bunch of different honey, pollinated in a bunch of different ways, right? So like what would be your favorite flavor profile? Or do you have one?
I don't really have one, and because like I keep hives like all in different neighborhoods in San Diego, I don't even try to guess what it's from most of the time. I just say, this is OB honey, this is Hillcrest honey, this is North Park honey.
Sure.
And so I get consistently really delicious honey from Claremont.
Okay.
And I actually think it's because there's a ton of really ambitious gardeners there. and everyone has a big yard.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of canyons mixed in too. So when it rains, there's that mix of that canyon sage, and then a lot of tropicals and a lot of like fun ornamentals and crazy things that people are growing. Like,
also, it's like probably some fruit trees, right? Some really nice big fruit trees.
Like papaya trees and
loquat.
like crazy like loquats and stuff like that. So I think I really like Claremont's honey, but probably my favorite came out of Imperial Beach because it tasted like berries, and I actually think it was elderberries because there's a ton of like wild elderberry, like the Mexican elderberries grow out there. And it was around the time that those were blooming, so I think that might have been it. But it came, that berry flavor came through. See how they're all chewing your leg?
Yeah.
I read this study, but now I can't find it, that like they'll mark bees that they're gonna let in but aren't from them. They'll chew their leg hairs off to mark them as foreigners. See how they're exchanging nectar?
Yeah.
See their tongues are out?
Yeah.
So she's giving them nectar, like, hey, let me in, here's some nectar. And then they're chewing her legs, like marking her as an outsider.
That's crazy.
It is really like a lot like gardening, where it's a steep learning curve. You know, you kind of know what you're doing, but you can never really know what's going wrong. You can guess that it's the soil, or that
there's just
like,
so many variables in nature and controlling nature.
Yeah, there's so many variables. You're never totally confident in what you're seeing. So it's right. She's right here.
Yeah.
And they've kind of like just left her alone now.
She's running away a little bit.
She's kind of just like, oh, they're chewing on her again now. Like,
where is she now?
She's right there. She's the lighter colored one.
Yeah, the lighter butt.
Yeah. They're kind of just letting her do her thing.
Huh. Maybe she had that honey.
She had something.
She's this one right here,
honey,
right? Yeah. It's so interesting.
But they keep coming over, like, who are you?
So when you were saying you were going to move the small, unhealthy colony into one of these, how would that have worked if they...
Yeah, so if there wasn't a queen, what I could do is I would take off this lid and I would put a piece of newspaper there, and then I would put another box on top and I would move those frames into it. And then they chew through the newspaper after like a week, and then they're considered one colony because they get the chance to smell each other through the newspaper, but they can't attack each other. And then by the time they've chewed through, they've kind of gotten used to the smell and kind of become one smell.
It's like mixing paint, kind of.
Kind of, yeah. And so now that I know there's a queen in there, though, I can't do that unless I kill the queen. Because there can't be two queens. So
what would happen if you put two queens in the same?
They would just kill all the bees, and they would kill the queen.
So if you don't want to keep bees, do that.
Yeah. If you want to make a huge mistake with your bees, you could try doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now I have to kind of make the choice, like, do I try to feed that hive? The risk of feeding that little hive is that other bees will sometimes smell that sugar water, and then they'll attack them to steal the sugar water.
So the same problem could happen.
Yeah. So it's like when you have a colony that is that small and that weak, like they're just vulnerable to absolutely everything. Yeah. And sometimes when you try to help them, you actually make things worse. So it's a little bit tough. Gotcha. That's why I say, like, I just don't think they're gonna make it.
Well, that was it, guys. I think it was a long, cool tour of Hilary's hives. That could have been your name, actually. Hilary's Hives.
Yeah, a friend of mine really wanted me to call it Hilary's Honey.
Hilary's Honey.
But I don't know.
Triple H, Hilary's Honey and Hives. Anyways, so I hope it was interesting. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about bees, as you could probably tell by my questions, but I think that we got a lot of information, and just the tie-in with gardening is so obvious to me that I figured I would bring it to you guys, and I wanted to kind of give you've got a lot going on. So tell everyone what you're up to and how they can like connect with you and everything.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, and I do like kind of micro bee lessons on there. And then I also have some online classes. So if you're just wanting to jump in with a backyard hive, or you're just trying to figure out if it's for you, there's an intro class that you can stream online. And then I do local stuff, like I do tours and I do kids workshops and pretty much anything you can think of that involves bees. Yep. You have a board game, right? Yeah, I have a kids game. It's not really a board game, it's like an imagination game. Okay. I have some like teaching tools for existing beekeepers. So if they want to visit classrooms and do presentations also, I've got some cool stuff for that. And you've got, and then your book's gonna be coming out sometime next spring, right? Yeah, end of April. I've got my first book coming out. It's gonna be all about queen bees, and we play this really fun game on my Instagram account called Queen Spotting, where you can search for the queen bee. It's like Where's Waldo but bees.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Cool, so yeah, everything will be down in the description, guys. So as we sit next to this 7,000 pound pumpkin, I guess we'll see you on the next video. Good luck in the garden, keep growing, and keep hiving. I don't know, do you have a sign off?
Having hives.
Keep having hives.
Yeah.
So catchy. See you guys.